We're here today to discuss a little bit about what retailers are looking for when they're considering security partners. So, you know, in 2021, retailers are looking for more than just, you know, cloud security solutions or perimeter gateways. They're really looking for security partners who can match the needs of the retail enterprise. When you're trying to solve for the perimeter, the data center, cloud, IoT, and endpoint all at the same time, you need to find a security partner who's able to play in all of those spaces. And so the experts on our panel are here today to talk about how retailers should be considering the security implications of this increasingly connected retail environment. So Jason, would you like to kick us off?
Sure, thank you, Yaffa. What a wonderful opportunity to get to talk with all of you. In my career, I've spent a fair amount of time working with a number of retailers and working with the retail industry, providing cybersecurity solutions of various flavors over time. To have an opportunity to talk with you in this format is wonderful. I really look forward to the conversation that we have after the brief presentation and the brief notes. We figured that we would start by giving you just an appreciation and understanding of Check Point's view on cloud security and the expanded cloud security ecosystem, and sort of where we see it fit, how it plays, and then have a discussion around that and how it applies to retail and what you guys are experiencing in your respective areas. Cloud security today, from Check Point's perspective, is an environment or an ecosystem that needs to support a unified multi-cloud security environment. Retailers and customers, Check Point's customers, have a wide variety of platforms that they are able to select and choose from to run cloud applications, cloud infrastructure, and cloud services. In doing so, a security solution needs to end up supporting that in a comprehensive manner. It is not reasonable enough to provide a point solution within a cloud environment. That solution needs to span across multiple clouds, and it needs to span across the variety of features that each cloud environment provides. So Check Point today looks at it from 5 different perspectives. There is the private and public cloud network security infrastructure that needs to be supported in order to be able to support your lift and shift needs. There's the cloud security posture management of the native applications that run in the cloud. Workload protection, looking at containers and serverless functions because of the expanded function support that comes with each cloud platform today. Additionally, there's a communication protocol that exists, and the communication from your applications to infrastructure and the web application and API protection is something that's essential, and every customer that we're working with is looking towards that in order to support their DevOps cycle. And the last one is visibility into that cloud environment in real time that provides cloud intelligence and supports something similar to threat hunting in order to be able to provide relevant, actionable information so that you understand what's going on with the assets that you have and the applications, and to ensure that you are maximizing your performance and business value. In particular, we know that in the retail market, you guys are very strongly thinking about looking at and working with cloud environments. We know that this last year has been has presented a dramatic shift and change to the industry in the retail space. Our understanding is that 75% of consumers today are reporting that they have and are engaged in new shopping behaviors, and that 218% increase into curbside pickup is something that you guys are having to address. And that is just the tip of the spear of the broader context of supply chain visibility or merchandising decisions, personalized customer service, and insight into business performance and smart stores. Those are all things that are behind the scenes driving the decisions that you make around cloud. And Check Point has really spent time to understand what that means and how we're able to deliver a unified multi-cloud security platform. However, this is a very simplified view of what underneath it all becomes a much more complicated story around cloud security. And it's very important that part of what we do is that we express we express the experience that we have and the knowledge that we have around cloud security by giving you and showing you that we aren't simply just a set of products, but that we are actually a platform that is aligned with standards out there, such as CNAP, the Cloud Native Application Protection Platform. As Yaffa had noted, two of the gentlemen that are on the panel with me, they're technical in nature. Both Gregsie and Mark have technical backgrounds and support our cloud initiatives. And I was going to ask Gregsie to talk a little bit about what we're doing with regards to alignment with CNAP and how we're really digging into cloud security and what cloud security means from a technical perspective.
Yes, thank you, Jason. As you stated, at Checkpoint, we're aligning our product suites against the CNAP that has been defined by Gartner. This framework's really important to any industry, in particular the retail. It's important to map against these layers. We could look at cloud, cluster, container, and code as a vertical stack across the CNAP framework, CSPM for the cloud security posture management, and the workload protection layer. And I'll have Mark talk to the CSNS around our WAP product and so forth. On the CSPM, it's really important that as you move to the cloud or in the cloud, that you continuously monitor your workload to understand the vulnerabilities and the nature of your compliance over time. No longer can you rely on a point-in-time assessment. It's really important, truly important, in all the areas I have visited in my past life, that your systems as they run on the cloud must be monitored in instantaneous, continuous manner. Reason being, because of the new nature of high-performant development teams using CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous delivery and deployment mechanisms, code and features are being pushed. So a lot of your applications no longer change once a month or once every 3 months. They're changing possibly minute by minute. With that said, you need to interject in the pipeline, in the continuous integration CI/CD pipeline towards the left, which we call towards the developer, tools such as code scanning for static, code analysis for vulnerabilities. Catch that early. You cannot no longer wait for that to get to production to find out that they're vulnerable. Also, the most cloud native applications are ephemeral. They're gonna change quickly. They're moving around, they go up and down. So it's important to have a CSPM that has insight, that uses some level of machine learning or IA into the feed and analysis of your feeds and flows and data flows. It's important also that you have your workload, such as your containers or your serverless functions, protected by our layer of cloud security that actually mitigates and eliminates real-time threats that are being thwarted in your application tier. And I'll move on to Mark to explain. And again, this is a large topic. We'll have an open discussion around the CNAP alignment and our product line. Mark.
Thank you, Gregsie and Jason. And if you haven't already guessed, what you'll see is that Jason has provided an excellent overview of the challenges that I'm sure all of you are facing. And Gregsie began to drill down into what I call the cool, fun stuff that's happening now if you're dealing with the DevOps community in your organization, to talk about the things that they need to be considering as they protect your applications and your data, not only in the cloud, but in your private environments. But the fundamentals of all this really haven't changed in terms of how do we protect the network, and how do we do that, not just having your own site firewalls, but being able to manage across your internal deployments and with having the policies applied both at the cloud and straight from the way you do on-premise. But specifically, one of the new considerations that gets over back into the Gregsie's cool side of things is the WAP protection, the ability to protect your web applications and the APIs that you may be publishing as you integrate with your supply chain or create new shopping applications. And so, these are all topics that we would love to go into much further detail with you on. And we'd be glad to discuss them, in a follow-up session offline. But let me just pause there and say that from the foundation of the network security all the way up through posture management and being able to identify what's going on in your environment, these are the things that we hope you're considering, and we'd be glad to answer any questions that you have today about those things.
Thank you, Mark. I want to quickly wrap, and then we'll open it up and start having a discussion. I want to quickly shift, though, and make sure that we share an expanded perspective. For us, cloud is not simply the cloud applications and the cloud platforms that you work with, but it is the extended relationship that cloud supports and drives relative to IoT. IoT's security framework starts with protecting the device and protecting the network, but includes protecting the cloud because of the inherent relationship that exists between the IoT device and the cloud. Things like supply chain logistics, asset tracking, smart stores, smart shelves, etc. Those are all things that build into that IoT cybersecurity framework that has one of its three pillars, the protection in the cloud. And so when we look at cloud, we are thinking beyond that and looking at it in a broader context. And even further, Checkpoint looks at it holistically across the widening attack surface that every organization and every enterprise ends up having to look at and consider, and ensuring that what we are providing is a strong enterprise infrastructure security platform for all of the rest of the business solutions and security solutions to be built upon. Our perspective is that this is what retail is looking at. These are the things that retail is considering, and that you can't take any one of these as just a single slice of the pie. It's a part of the entire security meal that businesses are having to consume. With that, I'll stop and I'll shift back to Yaffa and questions and discussion.
So I've had something sent to me in the private chat. Somebody's asking the question of, are there any insights that perhaps you could share related to maybe some outreach that we did last year, or any kind of retailer customer that we're supporting?
So have been working with a number of retailers and a number of customers, both around cloud IoT and the extension into that space. The simple extension into the space in order to provide an extended customer experience in e-commerce is certainly one of them. But we are also working with them on expanded IoT visibility as well. I don't have the particular customer at the top of my mind that we've actually worked with, but I do know that we've worked with several in that capacity. I don't know, Mark, if you or Gregsie have any insight into a particular customer.
No more than you have, Jason.
And in terms of our outreach in the last year, not just in the category of what we've talked about, but Checkpoint has been very responsive in the last month regarding the Sunburst attack and being able to provide some tools for our customers to analyze their network and their infrastructure. That has certainly been top of mind in the last month because of the scope and the magnitude. And it's what we've called a Gen 5 attack that we've been saying for years was coming. And this was definitely one, it fell into that category. So that's certainly been of interest to our customer base right now, from retail to in every category.
A lot of the outreach that we did last year, there was a concerted effort to do executive outreach last year with Checkpoint. And a lot of it ended up working with executives and focusing on supporting that business shift that occurred last year because of work from home and sort of the shift in accessibility to that physical on-prem. A lot of the engagements and a lot of the business interaction that we had with customers, not simply retail, but customers, was around establishing financial models with them that enabled them to be able to very rapidly move infrastructure so that they were able to be more agile in the way that they adapted and adopted security within their enterprise. Many of the customers that we worked with had to very rapidly shift to a work from home environment where they had to enable all of their workers to rapidly respond. And they were able to, because of the flexible financial models that we had put in place, they were able to very quickly move what was planned legacy infrastructure expense into perimeter remote access security strategy and endpoint security strategy that enabled a BYOD work from home model and expanded their cloud posture in order to be able to not simply provide customers with an extended experience, but to provide their own workers with a secured access to those environments.
And I think something which I know often comes up in discussions with the cloud team, which obviously I'm sort of biased towards, is that conversation about whether our customers should be considering those cloud native controls or partners like Checkpoint. And I wondered if you could perhaps talk a little bit to that as well.
I'll start, and then I'll let Gregsie and Mark chime in. I'll just share with everyone. We've been doing a lot of work with Microsoft over the last year. Microsoft and AWS are very strong partners of ours. We work very closely with them. We are a partner with Google. We are a partner with Alibaba and a partner with Oracle. But we're further along in our relationship with Microsoft and AWS. And as Microsoft's #1 ISV, we are privy to and part of a lot of internal conversations at Microsoft. And one of the things that Microsoft noted was that they feel that their responsibility, and AWS would say very much the same thing, their responsibility is to establish the standards that businesses should adopt at minimum. Oftentimes, they're presenting native controls that provide security features into specific aspects of the cloud platform that a third-party tool won't solve for the way that they're able to solve for it natively. And in other instances, it's a minimal security measure that they want to make sure that you have in place. What this Microsoft executive said was, we established a standard, but our partners like Checkpoint are there to provide the premium and the extended security that we are wanting to have employed within our environments. And it's why we have found such a wonderful relationship with Microsoft and Amazon in that respect.
Yep, and to your point, Jason, the other piece is the good old, let's monitor across various clouds in a hybrid multi-cloud world. And that's where you need a CSPM that crosses many platforms and give you visibility across your multi-cloud operational layer.
So let me reach out and let me ask, because I want to make sure that this is a little interactive. Ken, I'm picking on you again because you've got your camera on. What is your interest and what are some of the challenges that you guys are facing inside the cloud space and that cloud initiative? What has drawn you to this topic, and what are some of the things that you're thinking about that we might talk about?
Well, I would share that someone else might be more in tune to asking a more direct question. I'm working with a company called Sports Events 365, and we're a retailer selling sports tickets, and I'm like a marketing manager for the United States. So I'm interested in just the entire scope of managing the technology, but I'm really from more of a marketing. So for my only question would be, if I wanted to add in-the-box software to our system, that I say, okay, what's this? I don't know the risks of that could be unwound by adding software, and so I was listening, trying to think how, and understanding, of course, what you said, how you are, looking at things real time. But is there a software vetting process? Like if I want to add something and we're using your company, that you would, say, oh no, don't use this, or that's my only thought.
So there's definitely a couple of things that you would want to make sure that you consider as you look at applications, third-party applications that you would end up incorporating into your cloud environment or would become a part of your cloud environment. One of the reasons why we call it security posture management is so relevant within the cloud space today, as well as the web app and API security that Mark had talked about. The reason that that's so relevant is that you're needing to make sure that you have a certain visibility, governance, and control over the different mechanisms and the different configurations that exist because of the fact that they're able to change so fast in real time on cloud. Having those pieces secured, it's not necessarily about the application that you would use, it's about making sure that the environment that that application sits in or that you tie into via web app API, that you are putting the controls in place that secure your environment, your data, and your customer experience, because that's the part that you're not wanting to have exposed. The third-party app will purport or provide very specific types of controls, but within your own application, within your own environment, and within the API controls that you put in place that establish the communication between your applications and that third-party app, you want to make sure that you have visibility, that you have responsiveness, and that you have control, typically with a broad range of automation, orchestration controls. And those are just things that you would ask for and you would look for. And those are things that a real security platform in the cloud would provide and wouldn't end up necessarily dictating which application versus another, but would just ensure that you're doing your due diligence on that side and that you have the right security controls to protect your own data and your own customers.
Thanks. Thank you.
Not a problem, Ken. What about Brian or Riley or Mr. Wong or Nair? You're all on here. Anyone have any thoughts or any questions? No? Any other questions, Yaffa?
Yeah, I wanted to hear a bit more from Gregsie about some of the shift left tools. Maybe you could sort of help us to understand a bit more about how we're shifting left and why that is critical.
Yeah, so in the current paradigm of the rapid speed of DevOps, you'll hear, as code is being developed, a tool like shift left that we provide allows you to scan through that code base, whether it's infrastructure as code, native code, serverless functions, and really assess on the fly whether there's vulnerabilities, whether you're storing secret in code that you shouldn't, and various other policies, and why that's important. If you catch your vulnerabilities or malaise or inadvertent secrets stored in code that shouldn't get into a production environment, it eliminates the risk from becoming real via exploitation. So it's very important to use a tool similar to shift left or shift left to assess your code base.
And this is just, Yaffa, just to add on to what Gregsie had noted, one of the reasons why the shift left piece is so very important, this is not new. In the world of SecDevOps, this is not new. Shift left is something that cloud development teams and cloud operations teams have known for a long time. It's gaining the support of the broader business and cybersecurity efforts within the business to appreciate what that means. Business ops and business development within the cloud has been doing shift left and supporting a DevOps environment for years. The cybersecurity industry is now finally starting to acknowledge and put into place the types of tools and the types of support that enable that shift left in a more standardized fashion, where in the past they've relied on homegrown, home-developed tools and methodology. They're now starting to be able to adopt tools such as what Checkpoint provides. So the shift left is not something that's necessarily new. It's just businesses have been slow to get to the front end of their development cycles to build security in. Code as infrastructure is something that for years, businesses have been looking for the cybersecurity industry to support. And it hasn't been until recently that you found providers such as Checkpoint providing the type of tools and the type of facility to support cloud as infrastructure in a policy-driven fashion. So it's a fantastic development and a emerging sort of space that the cybersecurity industry is moving into.
Thank you both. And we've got a couple of minutes left.
What was that, Mark?
I was just going to say, I wanted to share a practical example because this kind of related to Ken's question in terms of, how do I make sure that the applications I'm going to use are being protected? And I'll tell you that one of the most common practices among developers these days are to incorporate GitHub repositories in their code development. And they go out and they do a little research and say, oh, I need a library or I need this functionality. And they plug it into the pipeline and what Gregsie has referred to as the CI/CD pipeline. And they click along and they say, oh, give me the latest version of that code every time they build their code new. And that's what Shift Left is talking about, is inspecting that code as it's being built so that you don't end up down the road with something that's been deployed and say, wait a minute, I've been using this library for years. Why is it now vulnerable? And having that code externally validated through a service like Shift Left before you go to deployment. And that's where it really makes a difference for you.
There are some very specific code development tools and solutions that do exist out there that also provide a particular compliance check against the different licensing models that exist. That's another part in cloud that has become a very notable concern for businesses from a legal aspect, which is the adoption of code bases that have an improper licensing model. It's beyond the scope of what Checkpoint provides specifically, but is entirely within the scope of what businesses are having to think about as they adopt and build cloud applications, which are, what are the third-party tools that we're using, the third-party applications, and what licensing models do they incorporate? Think back to, and it's a common, it was a common news story. All of the home edge cable routers that were out there that were supplied by one of the vendors was utilizing a third-party code base that resulted in them having to effectively replace them all because that third-party code base was not properly licensed and they were not licensed to utilize it. And it resulted in an issue that they had to manage as a business. It wasn't a security vulnerability, but it was a risk to the business because of the fact that licensing within the context of third-party tools and code bases presents a risk to the business. So that's part of where Mark was kind of going to.
Thank you. And I don't know, do we have time for one more question or are we?
Well, we're at the top of the hour. I'm sure that people are going to get booted out of here. We could certainly take one if there's more that we want to take.
So I'll just, before we take potentially the last question, remind everybody that this session was recorded. Thank you very much for joining us. And if anybody would like to watch the replay, please reach out. So if we have a couple of minutes to talk about the convergence of IoT and data centers in the cloud, because we've been talking a lot about cloud native, we could address that.
Sure, absolutely. Let's quickly just make sure that we share our perspective on that convergence. Retailers for a long time, and many businesses, but retailers in particular, have been challenged with and have been battling the convergence between the legacy data centers and the legacy store infrastructure that they have, and this emerging new cloud infrastructure, and the imparting of IoT devices within it, whether it be smart stores, smart shelves, et cetera, in the supply chain and in the warehousing. Having a solution that bridges those particular pieces is a very key piece to looking at that security enterprise infrastructure, is in a capacity to look at. And one of the things that Mark had talked about with regards to the cloud network security that exists, a solution that is able to bridge that gap between data center, private cloud in the data center, virtualized data center, and your cloud environment that you've shifted and lifted, where you've taken infrastructure and put it into the cloud, becomes that value proposition with a cloud security platform, because a cloud security platform that converges or consolidates those into one particular place, you gain the benefit of common threat intelligence, common threat response, common orchestration and automation that helps to simplify that environment and helps retailers start to look at the very specific and niche solutions that they need around some of the niche areas of IoT or some of those niche areas in cloud with regards to certain types of cloud solutions. So it's a very interesting space that we support. Anything else, Mark, Gregsie?
Thanks to the guys that joined, the folks that joined, thank you.
Yeah, nothing.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Thank you, Mr. Nair. I
Thank
think
you.
it's Mr. Nair. It could be Mrs. Nair. Thank you. And thank you, Ken, so very, very much. Thank you so much. Wonderful to see you. Have a great time down in Florida, man.
Yeah, maybe I'll look you up in Vegas.
Oh, next time you're in Vegas, just look me up. You've got my name. I'll come out and hang out. So I can't wait till we get back to having conferences in Vegas again.
We're coming about 2 minutes past the hour. Would you like to go ahead and start the call, or would you like to give it a few more minutes?
No, we can get started. Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ken. Take care.
Thank you.
Everyone, welcome to another installment of our Diversity and Inclusion Working Group.
Yep. We're all going away now.